Time now to call in our own Richard Wolff. Mind if we call you Charlie, just to keep it clear? He, of course, is
thanks, Charlie.
The senior White House correspondent for Newsweek magazine. And good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
McCain's spokesman, Tucker Bounds, told MSNBC this afternoon that the Palin interview was impactful, which is an interesting choice of words. That clearly is not a lie. That is the truth. He didn't say what kind of impact, did he?
No, and I think Tucker may have been on a trip of a lifetime himself. This is the kind of deep asteroid impact. What you have here is not just a cumulative effect. Let's just pull out one thing, shall we, and examine what would have happened had Barack Obama given that response about NATO. You pulled up a bit of it, but it's a really important point here, given how the McCain campaign has talked about Russia and Georgia. Charlie Gibson actually did a good job of pressing Governor Palin. Was it worth going to war? Would it be worth going to war with Russia over Georgia? Her response was this: yes, if someone is invaded, NATO allies are called on to come and help. But she went further. She said, actually, what it really is about being vigilant if a big country invades a small country. And it might not need to war, she said. Maybe there'd just be economic sanctions. Well, now listen. Either Governor Palin is arguing for the complete evisceration of the world's greatest military alliance and turning it into the European Union, or she doesn't really understand what NATO is, what mutual self-defense really represents. And again, had Barack Obama said this kind of thing, everyone in the conservative media would have said he does not understand national security.
Or if he had given the answer about the Bush doctrine, or it wasn't an answer, it was in fact a series of questions in response, basically, that amounted to, I don't know what you're talking about. Is it more frightening the fact that she answered the way she did and then ran off into some prepared material, or that she seemed utterly unfamiliar with that term?
The troubling thing actually has been hearing people all day saying, well, you know, there are lots of doctrines out there, and she did kind of well. You know, this isn't actually America's Got Talent. This is not a case where you just say, well, you know, she hasn't had much time to practice for this kind of thing. The Bush doctrine isn't just any old piece of the Bush legacy. It is the critical piece of the response to 9/11, the justification for going into war in Iraq, and national security, after all, is considered the strength of this ticket. That's been the argument that Governor Palin and Senator McCain has said all along. So it's not just a lack of familiarity. It's knowing what that ticket represents, the ticket that she is on. That's where the troubling aspect of this is.
Yeah, I thought there was a chance she was going to say that she was a Rolling Rock gal herself. But now this earmarks thing from tonight, she's claimed that accepting them, that part of the equation here, the acceptance of the earmarks is okay. The peddling of pork is evil. Is there an analogy there to it's okay to take illicit drugs, but dealing them, those are the people who are solely responsible for the equation?
Well, on this one, I actually kind of admire the dodging spirit here. And if Sarah Palin was running against John McCain as opposed to running with him, then this would have been a great response. Unfortunately, John McCain has several years of statements about why he opposes earmarks, why he opposes pork barrel spending, and the use of lobbyists doesn't really crop up. The secrecy is a factor, but that's not the main factor. The factor is wasteful spending. So it's an interesting dodge. It just doesn't comport to what her boss, the head of the ticket, represents.
If you're an independent voter, you're not a member of a conservative Republican base, somebody undecided, somebody in the middle, that group of, I don't know, 1,000 people left, did the interview convince you that Governor Palin is ready to lead on day one, or, you know, whatever it is, day 1,000?
Well, look, I suspect that a lot of people are looking at the tone and the composure of the performance. And a lot of, frankly, political reporters missed a bunch of stuff in this because the headlines were all about going to war with Russia as opposed to what does NATO represent. A lot of people were taken in by the performance here, and 50% of the country apparently thinks she is qualified. 50% doesn't. So I suspect this media interview series doesn't really change very much.
Last point here. She's got her next big interview, Sean Hannity of Fixed News, next Tuesday. If you're a betting man, Richard, what are the odds that we will ever see Governor Palin on Meet the Press, Face the Nation, in front of the Newsweek editorial board, or anywhere else where there are actual journalists ever again until her debate?
Unlikely, and I would expect Rachel Ray to ask more piercing questions about her moose stew.
Got a good recipe for moose. Richard Wolff of Newsweek and MSNBC, and not named Charlie. Thanks. Have a good weekend, Richard.
Thank you, Keith.
Something Charlie Gibson did not ask in his otherwise impeccable probing of the governor's mind, she herself brought up unexpectedly in front of the troops shipping out to Iraq, her own son included. She told them they were going to defend America against the people who planned and carried out and rejoiced in the death of thousands of Americans. You heard it. She linked 9/11 to Iraq in 2008. Next.